Next up is going to be Gilbert Segura, CTO of Global eLearning. Basically an industry veteran. Hi there.
Hey guys.
Industry veteran, been around for a while, started working with Dell, I think in the 90s. So a lot of experience here, a lot of great knowledge he's going to be explaining. Currently, as I mentioned, CTO, so it's got a big role with Global eLearning. He's going to take us through some e-learning platforms and localization. And I will actually, I know we're ahead of schedule a little bit, but I'm going to hand it over to you so you can wow everybody. How's that?
Right. As you can see, I'm in my little art bunker down here, hiding from COVID-19, as everyone else probably is. So I kind of prepared this presentation. It's going to be light and sweet, short and sweet. So let me go ahead and just share all my goodies. Hopefully, Chrome and everything else plays well. And I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to get into it a little early, and we're just going to talk about e-learning, what that is, and how that relates to this emerging environment that we're in now. Because nowadays, everyone's from home. And it also means everyone who's doing corporate training in the world is doing it from home or to people at home. And that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to cover kind of what it is that we're looking at, as well as what is that we're going to expect. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video just because I think things work better when I'm not distracted by my own face. And we're going to get started here in a second. So basically, we're in interesting times. Like I was saying, we're all going virtual. So everyone on the planet has basically been moved into a different type of situation. Developers who make this type of content have to adapt their modality of content. They've been making classroom training for forever, and they assume that there's going to be a person in front of a class, a captive audience, someone who's just the learner sitting there. They've been, set up a time for their meeting. They're in a special room. They're in a special place. They've got their attention, and then also all that's been structured around a classical setup, where there's basically, a training budget that assumes travel and booking rooms and meetings and people's times are associated with that. That's all kind of going away. So what we end up having are changes in three big areas, right? The developers have to change, the learners obviously have to change, and then the budgets and the business logic around these things has to be reevaluated. Learning content basically is difficult to make. And that's kind of what I'm going to cover for most of this short talk. And then the rest of it is, how does that work into localization? Because you'll be surprised, or maybe not, localization is typically an afterthought in these practices. So it's been usually the case where, well, I'll do my training in English and those guys over there in whatever place elsewhere can do what they want. So in a lot of ways, it's more like a classical primitive localization environment, an emerging localization environment. What you'll notice, though, is, of course, it's a huge industry. Right now, I was looking at $93 billion is this industry. So something to think about, how is this industry being disrupted? One of the movements in e-learning recently, really, is interactive gaming microlearning, meaning you're not going to sit there for 5 hours and get this course over over 4 weeks or something like that. It's more like short interactions. Your computer's on, your phone is on, you're in between a break, you're doing something else. It's not a distraction, it's an educational experience, but it's really short. So rapid results, rapid progress, quick, short intervals. What they found in terms of scientific measurement is that if you do short bursts of interaction and engagement, it's more poignant, it's more meaningful to you, and then you can do it over periods of time. So let's say this week you're learning one thing, and then it's really just for, a little burst of, hey, what about this? Oh, that's kind of cool. I really like to know that. And guess what? You kind of forget about it, but next week they say, hey, remember that thing you learned last week? Oh yeah, I remember that. Guess what? That type of switching in and out, small bursts of interactivity and in learning and engagement makes you retain it longer. And so that's kind of where e-learning is going. Now, the problem with all that is those interactive games that are really short and really cool to use, they're very complicated or potentially complicated. So you end up with a lot of stuff that is hard to recreate. It's basically this element of interactivity and gaming is also entering this rich multimedia environment. What I mean by that is you end up with things like a DTP project like a PowerPoint, but it also has timed audio because someone's narrating it. You also have on-screen text, so there's stuff flashing around when certain events happen. There's a certain button that shows up, or you click on a button and something else happens. So a lot of interactivity again. And there's in animations and synchronization, you drag and drop, drag the word from this bucket to that bucket, and the little creature moves their hands, or all sorts of stuff that makes it interactive and engaging, but then that brings you with a large technical gap. So some developers are actually really good at this stuff. They have conferences. I go to those, and they're very interesting, where they have all these neat tools and VR and AR and you name it. They've got something very interesting to address the challenge of engaging somebody. The problem is that with those tools comes a huge technical debt. And what I mean by that is not only do they use tools that maybe don't know localization, they also might be using tools or have developers who don't know localization. They also have their clientele, their downstream clients, and then the localization provider they go to goes, yeah, I can do video, I can do audio, I can do multimedia, I've done DTP, let's do it. And it's not that easy. Really what we're talking when we talk about technical debt is what costs you money. In Silicon Valley talk, technical debt is really what you look at where you have to invest time and money and resources to develop a process, a practice, knowledge, intellectual property, whatever you want to call it. You don't know how to do it. You have to figure it out. And so what ends up happening here is if you look at the cost factors that go into a multimedia localization e-learning project, you'll find that A, they're always going to be a little different. But B, you have these 8 factors here on the screen. You have cost for words, which is, everyone knows that. Voiceover for recording, so someone has to read the script. DTP, again, someone's got to put it all together, make it look pretty, make the words fit. We know that story. Script preparation for voiceover, okay, more multimedia. Subtitles, sometimes they want subtitles. Okay, we can do that too. Add that to the list. As you keep going, video editing and post-production, because they interleave videos, because you don't just want to hear the same narrator talking and you click next all the time. Sometimes you want to take a break and just watch something. And so all this goes into a package that someone has to click around, because that interactivity now has to translate into other languages and other modalities. And somebody in Japanese has to click and say, oh, you put the word next in the wrong button, or whatever those are. So it's kind of like software troubleshooting. It's an interactive troubleshooting. It's logical troubleshooting in a sense that you have to understand that the sequence of events has to make sense, which is particularly tricky if you don't know what they're talking about. So some subject matter expertise helps too. At the end of that, I've talked about what translation team, a voiceover team, DTP team, a video team, some other team, maybe an engineering team. We got 5, 6 people in a team just to get one of these projects out. That's a project manager for sure. So your project manager is now burdened with multiple streams of data, multiple different interdependent parts, which, it's a typical localization project, except we've got something else going on. A tool. The tool says click export. Export's easy. Just click here, magic button, all your stuff is ready to go. Go to your 7 teams, and these guys will take care of it. Problem is, you don't have that sometimes. Sometimes that export button doesn't exist. It's copy paste. I personally have a project going on right now that is all about copy paste, and this is happening very often because we have tools again that are behind the localization curve, and tools in the industry that don't understand localization requires certain considerations. XLIF is one of those words they've heard about, so they try to implement it, but they don't do it right, or they don't even have implementations. So it's very interesting. The problem, of course, is with doing it manually, It means you have more people working, you have copy pasters who may manually copy it wrong, or you have other things going on. So what you end up doing is needing to have support on the QA. So what we end up having is time and cost expectations that go up, and you basically have to fix it. Now, even worse, sometimes is you're going to get export buttons that don't work. So in this case, you'll end up with export the button, click it, and it doesn't capture everything. What doesn't it catch? Everything here. I mean, this is actually a real world experience of things that have been missed or not caught in the system. So transcripts have been missed, graphics and text. Oh, I didn't see that. Embedded files. All these elements are little surprise gotchas. And so what you end up having to do is you end up with descriptions that aren't captured, or embedded e-learning that's not captured, or multimedia metadata that's not captured. So these will throw back your schedule. They'll cause issues. They'll cause consternation. Um, an example of this, and this is really more of a historical standpoint, where you have something like Articulate Rise. This is actually a really popular program. Articulate is one of the industry leaders in localization, in e-learning, where they basically launched a platform, do it yourself, really rich interactive web environment. It's very engaging. It's very easy for you to put together a website with lots of questions, lots of interactivity, drag and drop. It's golden. The problem is that for over 2 years after they launched this wonderful tool, they did not have exports. So everyone was pretty much tasked with copy pasting. It was kind of painful. Of course, in 2018, they launched it, and now everyone can do it with XLIF, sort of, except you can't do Arabic, right? So you end up with a problem where, okay, this tool is now not meeting our needs. It's complicated. Everyone's doing this. I'm trying. It's easy. The English speakers are doing it. I guess the French speakers have to do it too. How do we do this? And so the solution is engineering in reverse, meaning reverse engineering. Prior to 2018, I actually managed to figure out how to reverse engineer one of these courses. It was a compiled, crazy course with REST elements. And this is one of the things we want to look at, where if you start looking at it backwards, you can do the reverse engineering approach, where you can basically take the course and start decompiling it. And that's kind of where localization has to actually adapt to this crazy world of complicated environments of different things.
Gilbert, I don't
Yes,
want to interrupt you, but I'm
yes,
afraid I'm going to have to.
yes, of
Um,
course.
and I know that actually this is just a teaser, if I understand
Yes,
correctly, to a larger opportunity that you're going to be showing people.
yes.
So there's no actual poll after this, I guess, this session. However, if you do say yes, you want more information about this, everyone's going to be receiving an invite to your webinar. So you're going to be able to take them through it and give them I guess, the larger or more informative version of what you've just done.
Yeah, no, I definitely wanted to give it a light dusting, so to speak, because there's so much to cover. We don't want to go into it.
And I'm always impressed with everybody. Like a lot of the speakers today, fantastic voices. You have a radio voice. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
I can listen to you all day. So please, everyone, if you want to see the full thing or hear more information about this, please just let us know, and you will receive an invite to the webinar. Gilbert, thank you so much for this brief but awesome presentation.
Yes, got to keep it short.
And short and sweet. And we'll talk to each other hopefully soon.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.